What is going on, everyone? Welcome to American Advocates. This is episode 94 now, I believe, coming to you live May 13th, the final hours of May 13th. And we are really talking about today some of the major news topics running through the cycle. That is, of course, the CIA intelligence report that was leaked, this massive CIA intelligence report leaked. Talking about Iran, the state that Iran is currently in, and what's going on post the February 28th military strikes on Iran. This intelligence report leak is very, very likely going to point to, in my opinion, future escalation, but also kind of is going to point out the major issue that we're now facing. And in addition to that, we're going to be discussing Trump, of course, flying out to Beijing, China, landing there today, meeting with President Xi Jinping. He's going to be there until Friday, I believe, is what I'm seeing. I'm going to go over some of the brief details of that, the mission objectives, I guess we'll call them, when it comes to what Trump wants in his meeting with Xi Jinping, the topics that will be discussed, and what we maybe can hope to get out of that meeting in general as Americans. It really doesn't seem to have too much to do when it comes to discussing America, or when it comes to discussing our country or the average everyday American. But nevertheless, it's an important topic to discuss. So that's going to be on the table with the CIA intelligence report leak, Trump flying out to China, and also briefly want to get into massive U.S. forces now arriving in the Middle East. What this will very likely be pointing to, I think we can all guess ahead of time. So I'm not even going to dive into that with details. Just really kind of announce it one more time later on tonight in correlation with everything else being discussed. And of course, discussing the Trump economy and how it's quite frankly just getting worse and worse and worse every single day. This economy is getting worse and worse. And we are now in that territory, like I've long stated on this channel, we're approaching that 16-month mark where the whole it was Joe Biden and the Biden inflation. We were dealt a very bad hand from Joe Biden. What a stupid president. That excuse was great all last year, and we give him the pass. We give any president a pass on his first year in office. There's a lot to accomplish. But when you start hitting that 16-month mark, you're now looking at an economy, and you're looking at the president in office, and you're saying, okay, these are your policies taking effect now. We're 16 months in almost. These are President Trump's policies. Is the economy better for it, or is it worse? And we all know the reason. We all know the answer first and foremost, and we also know the reason why. But I'm going to get into that. Some more news that came in, of course, when it came to the economy. Of course, let's start off with the major traditional opening on this channel now when it comes to the Iran war. Day 74 of the Iran war. 74 days wrapping up right now in less than an hour if you're going off Eastern Standard Time, less than 2 hours if you're going off of Central Time. And $80,261,950,000 spent if you're going off of the Iran war cost tracker number. That, of course, factored in $5 billion to start and then $1.2 billion per day to sustain this Iran war. And we are showing still no signs of this Iran war coming to an end anytime soon. It's, of course, put on pause right now. Like I said, there would be no escalation before Trump meets with Xi Jinping. That turned out to be absolutely correct, like every other prediction I pretty much made on this channel, because I am the smartest YouTuber out there when it comes to analyzing and predicting the Middle East. And I, of course, have help from my wonderful chatters, some of whom are actual experts. That they say that they are, like Howard Clegg. He tells me he's a 40-year-long veteran Army targeting officer. Good to see him in chat. Good evening back to you, Howard Clegg. Welcome, Eddie, who says Trump said Iran is done. Yes, he did say that. We're going to get to that later on tonight, Eddie. Thank you, 2009 Lifeguard, for being here. My moderator, my law enforcement, appreciate you. Jim Bombo says, what did the CIA say? Going to get into that. We're going to get into that. Trust me, Jim Bombo. The intelligence report leaks are not good for the United States, especially the timing of this up here. Notice the background, of course, today. The timing of this taking place and the classified intelligence report leaks that suggest what they suggest when it comes to the successfulness or otherwise of our U.S. military strikes on Iran, Devastating news, bad timing for Trump. It now, in my opinion, gives Xi even more leverage, unfortunately, with whatever negotiation will be taking place. But once again, you guys are currently watching the best show on YouTube when it comes to especially geopolitical analysis. So be sure to like the stream right now. That is free to do. I don't demand you guys pay your super chat tariffs, which you can obviously do by touching the dollar sign in the bottom right corner there. But there's no obligation for you guys to pay your super chat tariffs here, despite the fact that inevitably many of you absolutely stupid people will leave really dumb chats that I despise and will make me want to force you to pay money somehow. But what you can do that's free and makes up for it somewhat at the very least is double tap that phone screen or find the thumbs up button and click on it for me, because it's free and it helps this show perform better in YouTube's algorithm, which of course is an algorithm that I am most of the time, I would say at this point, at war with, because I speak way too much truth and I'm an equal opportunity offender. If you're a liberal, prepare to be offended, you liberal scum. If you're a MAGA cultist, prepare to be offended, you MAGA cultist scum. So get ready, all right? We're going to get into this. Now, like I said, 74 days coming to a close of this Iran war. We're quickly approaching day 75. We're in the 11th week. What started off, again, I love saying it. I really do. Because February 28th, I went live the morning of this shit happening, and I said, Trump has bombed Tehran. It's a war in the Middle East. It's GG. It's over. It's Iraq 03. And all along the way, throughout all the month of March, I was just annihilating the Trump propaganda on this. And bear in mind, if you want to be mad at me, by the way, yeah, so edgy, attacking both sides. I am a social and fiscal conservative, and I make no bones about that on this channel, Jason. Trump is too liberal for my liking is really the problem. But I am not a MAGA cultist. And so when Trump makes mistakes, or when any politician makes mistakes, it is my joy to point those out, because being critical of our elected officials is really our duty as Americans. So I always put that disclaimer out there for people who are wondering. I am a conservative. I'm just not a delusional cultist. That's not my Lord and Savior up there. That's just a president of a country that I live in that I love a lot. I love my country and I want what's best for it. So any president leading it, I want to be doing the right thing and making the best decisions. This Iran war, I've long stated from the start, was the worst decision Trump could have possibly made, and I've been nothing but vindicated so far in that assessment. Saying, of course, right off from the bat, it would not be just simply a 2 to 3 day bombing run campaign like we were being sold on. Why? Because Operation Midnight Hammer happened the year prior, and we were told originally that that was massively successful and good enough. So obviously a second bombing run campaign was not going to be where it ended if the first one didn't succeed. And from there, I only made more and more accurate predictions saying, of course, it was never going to be just a 2 to 3 week war like we were being then told, or a 4 to 6 week long war like we were eventually being told after that, as it became apparent that it was going to be longer than 2 to 3 weeks. They said 4 to 6, and it should be good. Iran's obliterated. They must surrender. Nothing is acceptable other than unconditional surrender. So it's going to be over 6 weeks at most. I kept saying you can't put a timeline on war. The Middle East is quicksand. Regime changes like trimming bushes, or what people are, I've heard other channels say, mowing the lawn, for instance. All good comparisons, all factual, all true. And here we are in the 11th week. It's not ending. And there's probably going to be escalation either this weekend or next weekend. But even then, it won't be over. And that'll officially be the 12th week we're entering. So double. We're already double, really, when they said 4 to 6, but when we hit that 12th week, it's officially double what they've told us, and still there will be no signs of it ending. And that's really where we're at on this. Now, what I wanted to get into here are essentially economic analysts are now putting out all kinds of mathematical statements here. The breakdown is very fascinating. So once again, I go off this Iran war tracker, and even I myself have said, $80 billion, $926,926,000 is a hefty amount. The way the Iran war cost tracker tracks it, again, for the record, is $5 billion startup initial fee, basically fee. I call it a fee. It's like an entry fee for the United States to serve Israel and do whatever Israel tells them. $5 billion startup immediately to launch the strikes in Tehran on February 28th. From there, to sustain it, $1.2 billion per day. And that's how the Iran war cost tracker really tracks this. So I've always said, the damages that I'm seeing indicate to me much more than $80 billion. I've always been saying we've probably, when you factor in damages and munitions expenditure and everything, we're easily over $100 billion. Well, now economic analysts are taking a look at the big picture as a whole, things that I myself haven't even been able to acknowledge because I'm not actually an economist myself. I don't think the way that they do. So I read the reports. I've been looking at the reports, and they're suggesting, several of them now, on more than one occasion I've seen this report, that we're probably already hitting the $1 trillion mark in the future, at least for future total projections. And this actually makes sense, and I'm going to break down why it makes sense when you look at the history of the Middle East involvement of the United States, prior wars in the Middle East, and really all of the hidden costs that go into waging war with another country. So I'm going to break that down because they did some math. I did a little math with them, though their math is better than mine and more than good enough. But what I did was really go back into time and use historical references to back up the math and the reporting on these economic analysts who are now citing that very likely in the future we'll see a $1 trillion total dollar bill for this entire engagement in Iran. So first and foremost, I want to remind everybody the Pentagon and Pete Hegseth, especially as of late, has tried to insist that really we've only spent 29 billion. And I love how they say that, by the way. Oh, it's only been 29 only 29 billion. 29 billion. That's all that it's been. That's all that we've spent on Iran. Just 29 billion. Don't worry about it. You, the taxpayers, can easily make up that difference. You'll just have to keep working, of course. But 29 billion, that's it. But the truth of the matter is, the way that they're choosing to report this, Secretary of War Pete Hegseth, the Pentagon in general, they're choosing to only reveal to us the lowest possible cost when it comes to munitions expenditure and operations costs. They're not factoring in much of anything else. So that's how they're reporting on it, and that's why there's such a massive difference in the number that they provide compared to just, again, the Iran war cost ticker.com, literally, that tracks it at $1.2 billion is spent per day with a $5 billion startup fee, essentially, right? So there's a massive difference. I've pointed this out on this channel in the past, and here we are discussing it again because they are deliberately gaslighting you into thinking that it's, again, it's a crime to say only 29 billion, but that's how they're framing it, right? Now, in addition to that, the real bill, what we really need to make note of here is the real bill compounds throughout years. And this is not new to the Iran war scenario here. You may want to say, well, those are economists that probably hate Trump, etc., TDS, blah, 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 blah. The MAGA cultists grow so tiresome at this point. We've seen this pattern play out, though, several times throughout several different wars over the course of modern American history. So the economists are completely correct in basing their estimations and future analysis and predictions for total cost based off of that historical precedent. So what you have to factor in is not just the munitions expenditure cost, each version of a missile or interceptor, whatever we use, that costs a certain amount that now needs to be replaced. But you also have to factor in not just the total cost to replace each one, but the total cost of the labor that goes into making that. Tomahawks, for instance, are estimated to be about $2 million a piece. Patriot interceptors are $4 million a piece. We have to produce them on an annual basis, and some of these were slow to produce because, unfortunately, like anything else, many decades ago, we decided China can take care of a lot of this stuff. So we rely on we've sold all of our industries overseas, so everything's slowed down here, and it takes longer to produce. As a result, our expenditure output is not that great. The labor that goes behind it is expensive, and the replacement costs start adding up. But it's more than that, too. It's way more than that. Now, military facility and base repairs, the upkeep, the costs, the operation costs that go into that, this gets added on in the reporting as well when it comes to how much this war is going to wind up costing us. And we know that this number is already in the billions. We know this courtesy of the satellite images that were also leaked. We got the report early on before they were officially leaked that Pete Hegseth, General Raising Cane, and the Pentagon staff in general, with probably other key figures in the Trump administration, were basically reaching out to these satellite imagery companies and pleading with them to not release the images, the orbital images of our military bases in the Middle East that were struck by Iran. And of course, why is that? Well, they've been deliberately underreporting Iran's force output abilities by underplaying it and saying, well, they're nothing. I mean, the whole lie here has just been unraveled at the seams now at this point. And this was another example of that, where they were telling us, well, their response was laughable. We shot down all of their attempts pretty much. What did land was either a dud or not that effective, damage minimum. Meanwhile, our force output was phenomenal. We've targeted over 14,000 of their military targets with great success. They've been reduced to rubble. They're irrelevant now. They must surrender. They're cracking. Their government's in a civil war. Blah, blah. I could just keep going on. And none of it has come to fruition. And all of it thus far has actually been proven to be a lie, in all honesty. It is propaganda. Now, courtesy of those satellite imagery, the satellite imagery photos that were leaked by the satellite company's staff or whatever, however they got put out, we've been able to look at the damage. I myself have taken those images and run them through AI assessment to figure out, are these fake? Are these deep fake AI images being used as liberal propaganda to make Trump look worse, or are they authentic? And how many of them were leaked again? Dozens. I ran these through, and I ran them through AI, and almost all of them came back as 99% authentic or more. So with the exception of like 3 of them, which even those had a higher percentage, but I discarded because, it's not 99%. So the satellite imagery has revealed to us that Iran's strikes were first and foremost much more effective than what the Pentagon has wanted to admit. And we've seen Iran's effectiveness all last week. I did all the reporting on this channel. They targeted 4 ships in under 48 hours, successfully damaging each and every one of them, some in catastrophic fashion. They landed strikes on Gyra, etc. If you've been a long time tuning in, then you've been here to hear my reports as they took place and my analysis of the situation. So Iran has already demonstrated to the world throughout last week that they can, 1, control the Strait of Hormuz, despite anything we can offer in counter to that, and 2, they do have the ability to successfully launch attacks. So it's not that hard to believe when you see the satellite images of our bases and how destroyed some of them are. The one base entirely, I believe it was the Bahrain one, but I could be wrong on that. The damage assessment was at exactly precisely $1 billion. Then you factor in everything else that's been damaged and equipment that's been destroyed, courtesy of our little skirmish with Iran, and the total, it's easily totaling in the billions of dollars range as well. That once again gets stacked onto the cost, and that's been factored in by these economic analysts, economic analysts. So that's another factor. Now, the cost of restocking depleted weapons with what will likely be higher tech versions is also a hidden cost, because now we've been depleting some of our armaments and munition stockpiles that were filled with some what would be now considered outdated tech or outdated armaments. So naturally, because there's new technology, and war always advances technology even faster, now there's going to be an increased cost in replacing those, because we will naturally want to replace them with the newer, more expensive versions. So it's even more money now to replace these depleted stockpiles that we've now burned through as a result of this Iran war. And that's just another great example of a hidden cost. Beyond that, we also have to factor in what's referred to obviously as veterans care. This should actually be more prioritized than what it is, and probably will sadly be underfunded, as we always treat the veterans in this country, unfortunately. It will definitely be underfunded, in my opinion. But regardless, you have to remember that this war continually, since February 28th, and even before then, we've been sneaking in, not really sneaking is not the right term, but we've been perpetually sending in thousands upon thousands upon thousands of soldiers into the region. We've lost 13 soldiers' lives, actually the number's 17 now, and that's probably still being underreported. And then in addition to that, we now have something to the effect of 50,000 total soldiers in the Middle East, like 50,000 more than what we normally have. So we have a pretty large force in there now, and these soldiers are going to need veterans assistance care for various different reasons. There's been a lot of injuries, there's been a lot of issues, and they, according to some of these reports, they may have been exposed, many of them may have been exposed to various different operational hazards while on duty, which will mean that our healthcare system, rightfully so, will have to spend extra money to take care of them. These are hidden costs that I myself haven't even thought through entirely. So reading the report was fascinating, but more than that, I've gone back into history to look at a comparable example. It's actually an analogy. It's actually a comparison. It's a paralleled comparison that I've made on this channel of what this Iran war is reminding many Americans of, not just myself. But finally, also, we have to factor in, of course, the global economic impact. And I've been discussing that at length on this channel and how fucked the world really is because of the United States and Israel bombing Tehran on February 28th. And there's no way around that. That is the absolute truth at this point. We are in now, we're watching this global economic impact. It's getting worse, the impact on the global economy. It's getting worse and worse. A recession is essentially imminent. It's coming. There's no stopping it now. And some economists are saying that we could be on the verge of a global depression, which in the past I used to scoff at, but knowing what I know and understanding what I understand now based on the inflation, the oil shortages, the Strait of Hormuz being locked down, etc., they're probably not that far off, and they're probably not completely incorrect for even discussing such a topic. It's really going to depend on how quickly President Trump can make an exit from this disaster or resolve it ideally, and resolve it in a way that's suitable for the United States, of course. But that's going to continue to drag out. And the longer, you have to understand, the longer we stay in this region and the longer the Strait of Hormuz remains closed, the worse it gets for the global economy and by default for the U.S. economy too. And that's just going to continue happening. I mean, we're talking oil prices, gas prices. The inflation is baked in now. There's no avoiding it. And it's going to be bad. That's the bottom line. It is going to be bad. Now, what I did to back up this economic reporting of these analysis now saying, likely this entire skirmish, whatever you want to call it, if you're a MAGA cultist, to avoid using the no-no word, war, we're in a war, to avoid using that, whatever you want to call it, the bottom line is these economic analysts are now predicting, of course, a long-term $1 trillion total dollar cost of all of this. And so it got me curious, and it made me decide, in all honesty, I said, you know what, let's look back on some historical precedents. What war does this remind you guys in chat of, this current Iran situation? For me, it screams Iraq 03. I said that week one of this war. So what I did was I looked back. I looked back in the Bush administration, and I looked back on the total cost of the Iraq War 03, which we all know the total cost was massively expensive, a complete waste of time, American blood, and treasure, but it occurred nonetheless. So I looked back on it, and it turns out President Bush, I was a little kid, so I don't remember all of this. I had to read about this. President Bush actually, during the Iraq 03 war and during his administration, eventually wound up actually firing one of his top economic advisors when he realized that the advisor had severely downplayed his estimation on how much the Iraq 03 war was going to cost the United States. Now, his economic advisor had originally estimated a total cost of $200 billion, which is already fucking expensive, by the way, especially back then. It was technically more expensive back then in 2002, 2003. So $200 billion was the total cost estimated by his economic advisor. What do we see in current modern day, present day? Well, funny enough, we see what the Iran war cost ticker predicts is at $80 billion in cost. Hegseth and the Pentagon insist, again, for the record, only $29 billion. Just explain to you why that number is deliberately skewed, and we're being gaslit with that from Hegseth, because that's just the munitions expenditure cost. But $29 billion is what they insist. However, at the start of this war, all the way back in March, I reported on it here, we already had Pete Hegseth very openly say, without even really thinking twice about it, with no hesitancy whatsoever, say in front of the cameras that they would need to lobby Congress for $250 billion extra dollars. He said that like it was nothing, by the way, and he said that in regards to using that money to essentially extend the Iran war. That's one of those instances where that was taking place, and I said, this is how you know this Iran war is going to go much longer than 4 to 6 weeks. Look at the actions being taken by the administration and the Pentagon, not the words being said. And Hegseth had, from the start, I would say just a few weeks in, when it should have already started becoming very questionable for many people in America, and somehow, of course, it wasn't, but it should have been. And I said, you know what, they're asking for $250 billion. Does that scream to you that this is ending next week like they projected, or in 2 weeks? Obviously, the answer I said was no back then, and I was right, as we are now, for the record, again in the 11th week. But $250 billion in addition to what they insist is $29 billion. So approaching $300 billion total, really, if they're able to lobby Congress for that much money. That's how you understand and know where they're at. So it is shades of Bush '03, Iraq War '03, economic advisor prediction $200 billion total dollar cost. However, what was the actual cost of Iraq '03? I've mentioned it in the past on this channel. Something to the effect of, after all of the interest on the loans that we took out to fund it, of course, $6 trillion. And according to reports, I think we're actually still paying that off. And some people insist that the entirety of the 2000s and the Middle East wars and our involvement in them racked up a total cost of over $8 trillion. But Iraq specifically is somewhere around the to the effect of $5 to $6 trillion in cost, right? And so that's Iraq. And now you fast forward to modern day, but you rewind to what I was just saying a few minutes ago here, where again they're trying to tell us, well, this hasn't cost us that much money, just a few billion dollars. It's going to cost much more than that, and the economic analysts are informing us, and they're predicting and estimating based off of all of what I just discussed, I think rather accurately so, that this has already cost us $1 trillion. $1 trillion already. And bear in mind, this war's not over. It's not even done yet. It's showing no signs of ending because both sides are gridlocked and stalemated in the negotiation process while continuing to test each other courtesy of escalation. We saw the Trump blockade fire on an Iranian oil tanker that tried to bypass the blockade and successfully hit the propeller of the boat, stopping it in its tracks. Iran became furious at this, decided to launch strikes on our U.S. naval destroyer squadron in the Strait of Hormuz. Then they decided, of course, to double and triple down on mining the Strait of Hormuz. They took out 4 ships from various different countries: France, where was it? France, South Korea, and a few. One of the Emiratis oil tankers that was thankfully empty at the time. They struck those 4 of them in under 48 hours. They've struck Fujairah, etc. They've been going tit for tat with each other. We have struck the Bandar Abbas region. We struck Keshem Island, or at least the Emiratis appear to have done that. So the escalation has been ramping up. The ceasefire is still in effect, though definitionally it ended, obviously. But I explained why Trump insists it's still in effect is because Trump knows that he has essentially been, in my opinion, checkmated in the region. But it's still in effect, I guess, but escalation continues to ramp up. We're now moving tons. The reports came in today. Tons of F-15 fighter jets in the area now. We're moving more forces in. All the while, Trump is currently in Beijing, China, of course. So all that being said, of course, now Trump landing in Beijing, China, getting to this point now, we have the news to cover there. So I'm going to cover what Trump is doing in China, how it plays a part in the Iran war, actually, to some degree, and what we're going to be working with. And also, I want to get, after covering Trump being in China, I, of course, want to discuss as well let me see here. What was my other topic? Yes, the CIA intelligence report. That's going to be the top story because that is just terrible news in general, and it really does set the tone for what Trump is going to be discussing in China, etc. So that's what we're going to get to. But before we do that, be sure to like the stream if you haven't already. Just double tap your phone screen. It's free to like the stream for you cheap-ass Goyim scum who literally are too poor to click the $ down there and pay your super chat tariffs like you should be. And it helps my show perform better in YouTube's algorithm. So like it, it's free. It'll be the most exercise you've gotten with your disgusting fat thumbs all day long. Let's face it. You're watching this show. You're eating Cheetos and ice cream, you disgusting fat cuck. Like the stream at the very least. It's literally the least you could do. And subscribe, of course, to American Advocates for more content and reporting like this, more analysis like this, and more of the honest-to-God truth. That's what's missing, the truth, and you'll find it here, or the closest version to it. I'm only human. I deliver things in a biased way. I'm a conservative at the end of the day. I'm a social and fiscal conservative, but I'm still going to speak on things as unbiasedly as I can. And it's actually pretty easy to criticize a Republican president when you think he's a fucking moron for getting involved in the Middle East to begin with. It's actually not hard at all right now. So subscribe for more content like this. I want to take a look at just a few chats from you guys, and then we'll get on to Trump's visit in China, what the objectives are, and what they're going to be discussing, how realistic any of it is, really. And then I'll get into the CIA or some form of classified intelligence report leak on Iran, and essentially the leak is establishing the success of our Operation Epic Fury. How successful was it? That's what we're going to get into for the top story. All right, let's see here. Bunch of fighting in the chat. I see. IRGC are Albert Einstein IQ level. Well, I don't know about that, but Rick Young. Yeah, you know what, Rick Young? I did want to. I'm actually glad you said that because people are saying that. Well, it's fitting that, Iran is, because I've actually made this comparison from the start. As soon as the Strait of Hormuz became closed down, I've been the one saying Trump is playing poker with Iran while Iran is playing chess. Because Trump is a bluffer. He's the art of the deal guy. His tactics are actually good on the spot sometimes. He does have some good instincts depending on the realm in which he's operating. His instincts are poorly applied here in war, though, which is very different from making business deals. And so Trump bluffs way too much. He's been bluffing way too much with Iran. And it's a strategy that doesn't apply to Iran because they are definitely playing chess. They want to tell you, the MAGA cultists, that Trump is the one playing 5D chess. Don't you know, bro, this is about getting oil. Don't you know this is about hurting China, dude? So fucking stupid. And it's like, if you still believe that now, after now being 11 weeks in and counting, if you still believe that after seeing this meeting go down with China, if you still believe that after hearing my reporting on this channel that China has the largest private oil reserves out of any other of the countries affected, including us, by the way, and they deliberately, I said from the start, would want this to keep going on, and that they would treat Iran as a giant proxy to wage war with us and weaken our economy and lower our stockpiles, which I've been nothing but right about thus far. I can't even help you at this point. You are just the unwashed masses that shouldn't be here. You're literally swine if you think that this is a 5D chess move from Trump and that he is using this to take out China forever. It is absolutely an unbelievable, unfathomable level of copium at this point, and you should honestly just literally get off this show. You need to tune in somewhere that is more suited for you, like Barney the Dinosaur or like Sesame Street, because that's your intelligence level at that point, okay? So all of that is to say, people have been saying, well, it's fitting because Iran invented chess, or Persia created chess. That's not true, actually. I did look that up too, and Rick Young said chess was invented in India. That is essentially, now this is a somewhat debated topic, but all the reports that I'm seeing that are credible suggest that India actually was the country of origin that created something similar to the modern version of chess that we play now. And it's been adapted over time, essentially. So many countries, and I'm saying this only because I actually am a somewhat passionate chess player, and I'm actually decent at it. I have openings memorized, etc., and certain sequences memorized, etc. So, the Queen's Gambit, the basics, the Sicilian Dragon defense, etc. But I actually do like chess. But yes, it's been adapted over time. So wherever it was created, likely it appears to be created in India. It was then adapted and transformed in various different countries, eventually arriving at some point to the modern day chess that we play now. That's basically the history of chess. Did I learn all of this on Reddit? Oh my God, how did you know? There's actually this other site that not many people are aware about, Bucks, but it's actually even better than Reddit, and it's actually where I develop all my opinions. You see, because I have no critical thinking skills. I have no actual all of this analysis is none of my own. I don't certainly sit down and research and read articles and look at geographical maps and look at the latest news and find literally live news reporting in the region, in the Persian Gulf region, that literally shows the ship transponders, the activity in the Strait of Hormuz, military activity that's being reported. I certainly don't look at foreign news sources like Israel's I-24 channel that you can look up for yourself. I definitely don't read articles out of Israel or look at Iran state media or pull up any of the social media accounts of people like Mohammed Ghalibaf or Saeed Arachi or President Pezeshkian. I don't do any of that. I literally do just go on Reddit and I look for some random Redditor's take on this entire topic. I write it down and then I literally just memorize it, which is how I can stare into the camera and speak like this. And then I double check my sources on Reddit by using this little known site called 4chan. 4chan is the fucking shit. That place is like paradise for me as a far right conservative. And that's where I know if it's on 4chan and Reddit, I'm like, oh my God, bro, this is the best information I've ever seen. And I immediately go live without a single thought process beyond that. So hopefully that answers your question, Bucks. Jeb Common says, Ponytail Advocate is a Democrat. You're a fucking retard, is what you are. Are you a retard advocate, Jeb Common? Because you're doing a great job of that, I'll tell you that. I am a social and fiscal conservative. I'm just not shy to fucking criticize the president. Imagine that. Blue Sky is the best social media. I love that. I agree. I would agree with you if I didn't get banned after my first post on there. Literally just banned. Gone. Boom. Destroyed. What are my pronouns? Don't have those. I don't believe in that shit. That transgender shit, I don't buy that one whatsoever. Pronouns are, well, actually, I'm not even wrong for saying this. Pronouns are literally gay. Okay. Anyways, let's discuss Trump's meeting in China, flying out to Beijing to meet with President Xi Jinping. And, what's happening here? Well, I've pulled up the reported key objectives of this meeting and the topics that they're here to really be discussing. Now, I found some of the activity centered around Trump arriving in Beijing to be a little bit, I would actually, to be honest with you, I would say disheartening, because this is our economic rival. This is like our economic opponent, right? And China nowadays has always been smart. They've been smart for the last 50-ish years, I would say, 40-ish years, where they have figured out essentially that the way to wage real good war in the modern age is not, you certainly have to have a military for deterrent purposes, and you certainly need to be a nuclear power, etc. But China's strategy for essentially conquering countries without firing a single bullet usually is to just wage economic war. And they've been very good at this. We actually saw before Trump decided to carry out his operations in Venezuela, which is actually, to me, that's actually what a military operation that I support looks like. I supported that on this channel. I'm a Monroe Doctrine guy. Focus on our Western Hemisphere. Ensure there's no foreign influence plaguing our Western Hemisphere like disgusting China and Venezuela. Rid that country of it. And why the fuck not? Take the fucking Venezuelan oil. It's ours, bitch. This is fucking America. But it's the Western Hemisphere we should be focusing on, not this bullshit in the Middle East. And so what was going on in Venezuela, for instance, was China establishing and creating telecom infrastructure, building seaports, and beginning to use Venezuela as a proxy point for what could have been future war with the United States. I did a whole video series on this on my channel last year. And this is all concrete. We know this. This has been happening. And how did China establish this with Venezuela? They recognized that Venezuela was a disgusting, crumbling country, right? Venezuela started transforming into this in the 90s after they widely turned into a massively disgusting and corrupt democratic socialist country who eventually wound up essentially killing the rival party in the streets and taking complete control. And then it became a drug haven nation, etc. And it just began deteriorating. Countries imposed massive sanctions on Venezuela, didn't want to do any business with them. Venezuela couldn't sell their products on the global stage for nearly as much of a profit. China comes in with their now economic wealth. They've been hoarding gold over the last several decades. They've been building up their wealth. They bought all of the American infrastructure from idiots like Jimmy Carter, Ronald Reagan, George H.W. Bush, etc., who wanted a quick way to improve the economy for the boomers and make prices even cheaper than they already were. And so China's become this economic powerhouse. Economically, by the way, somehow China is still suffering, but their people, their citizens are not living a high quality of life. The Chinese country, the Chinese empire, which is really what it is or becoming, has gone around several times to do what is called enslaving countries to debt entrapment. So they go to countries like Venezuela and they basically say, hey, we see you're really struggling there. We'll buy up all of your debt or most of your debt to drastically try to save you and bail you out. But in doing so, of course, we expect you to then sell us your oil, which is what was going on with Venezuela and China. And since China was now the only customer that would basically buy Venezuelan oil, since it had been sanctioned into oblivion, and since it's sour crude oil, which is actually hard to pass through the refinery process, of course, down in Texas and our southern states, we have the ability to do that, which is, again, why doing what we did in Venezuela was a good idea. But essentially now Venezuela is not only enslaved to the debt that they sold to China, which they can never hope to pay back, but now China says, well, we'll now buy your oil, but since we're the only one that will really buy your overly sanctioned sour crude undesirable oil, you're going to have to sell it to us at a rate that is so cheap that you'll never be able to profit enough off of it to pay back the debt that we've now purchased from you. Essentially, China has conquered Venezuela. They own Venezuela. They were building the telecom infrastructures and the seaports, and there's nothing that can be done about it. It's over. Not a single bullet needed to be fired. In fact, the deal was probably done with a friendly smile from Xi Jinping or some of his staff, etc., or diplomats, and it was signed, and that's it, the end of the country. They've actually tried this up in Greenland as well, believe it or not, by basically insisting that they could build airports for the people of Greenland for the low cost of just a few $1 billion per airport. This, again, would destroy Greenland because it basically would be China saying, well, you owe us now. And Greenland could never hope to pay that back. They're not a country with a large population. The GDP is extremely low. So they do this all over the place. And you have to understand basically what's been happening here is China has been using this Iran war circumstance. They've been watching this with a smile on their face, despite what the MAGA chuds will tell you about this being 5D chess and Trump is using this to hurt China. It's actually been going pretty much the opposite way. China is the one that has large oil reserves. They recognize what's happening right now with America expending all of our munitions, spending all of this money on the war, damaging our economy even more, and getting absolutely nowhere for it. And when I get to that classified leaked report later on today, you're going to see how bad it really is for us. And so they recognize what the potential of all of this is. So Trump is now there trying to break some sort of a deal with them, and the people that he has chosen to take with him are just upper echelon corporate profiteers, crony capitalists, etc., big business, and really, we're talking AI that's out there. We're talking, the usury area of life. Some of the bankers, I think, are there. Elon Musk is there, who I have very mixed feelings about, obviously. But, as time goes on, it's like he gets more and more shady, obviously. We thank him for free speech on X, but even then, it's not completely free. And Elon is all over the place. So these are the people out there right now. This doesn't represent the average everyday American whatsoever, in my opinion. And I have a feeling that what they're discussing, once again, is not going to be done in any sort of thoughtful way towards the average American. In fact, the very idea of trying to negotiate with this guy for pretty much any sort of deal is probably, it doesn't sit well with me. It's probably not going to end very well in general, in my opinion. Now, the topics, once again, so let's go over that. I just went into the topic of Iran. We're going to get to that again later on. But apparently the topics of discussion are going to be trade, AI, semiconductors, Taiwan, and then, of course, Iran. Now, on the topic of trade, Trump, I gave credit for. My first video I ever launched on this channel was actually about tariffs and how the tariffs would usher in the golden age. Now, of course, this was before I knew that Trump was going to serve Israel in their interests. And so obviously that video is not correct anymore. But the concept of tariffs is a concept I actually support on this channel. And I've looked at it from a hard economic standpoint. I've done the research on it. I've looked at the past, how they were used, etc. And I've looked at our current economic situation, the global trade, and what's been going on there. And when you really look at it through an unbiased lens, you do realize that America, though it was basically our own choice, courtesy of past leaders, America has been taken to the cleaners time and time again when it comes to the global trade deficit, et cetera, and the deals that we've worked out and what we tolerate from all these other countries. And so the tariffs isolated from this Trump administration, I fully support. Trump, unfortunately, decided to shortcut the process using IEEPA, the International Emergencies Executive Powers Act, or however, it's whatever order the two E's are. And this was a shortcut to be able to implement them quickly and them in effect immediately, essentially, and at a much higher rate than he normally would have been able to, as opposed to using the trade acts of 1974 and I believe of 1990 is the other one now. What happened there, of course? Well, the Supreme Court ruled against it, and not that they didn't rule against tariffs or the implementation of them. They ruled against the method of implementation of Trump using IEEPA. Did a whole episode on that, including covering some of the shady shit taking place behind the scenes with Howard Lutnick and his children. You should go check that out if you get a chance. But so that's been shot down. As a result, the administration has had to begin the process of now paying back all of the money, which was a lot. And again, was a prime example of how tariffs can work, because the money that's now being reportedly paid back is a good amount. And even more so, I was vindicated in the process of hearing about it being paid back, because guess where that money's being paid back to? Like I stated on this channel from the start, not just the importers are receiving it, but actually, miraculously, somehow, some exporters over in China and in Vietnam are actually owed a refund. Now, it's bad news that the refund has to take place, but it's like I said, the exporters, which I was called an idiot for, dude, which economic school did you go to, you retard? You don't even know what you're talking about. What do you mean the exporter will eat the cost of the tariff to keep the price competitive on the American markets, which are the most desirable? However could you think that? Well, fuck you, bitch. I was completely fucking right, you scum fucking bitch. We're paying back exporters. Some of them. Believe it or not, they do eat the cost sometimes. Not all of it in every instance, and not even a lot of it in every instance, but they'll eat some of the cost. The importers are being paid back a refund. They will eat some of the cost. That's why they're getting interest as well, of course. So I was a little vindicated in that. But the bottom line is, it's a disaster. Like with everything, Trump half-assed everything. He half-assed his approach to it. He half-assed the tariff negotiating process, especially with China, which is where we definitely have the worst trade deficit, and it's the country we want to hurt economically the most, because they're definitely our enemy, and they definitely fucking hate us, and they make it very clear in their mission statement that they want to economically crush us and make us irrelevant. And so the tariffs could have been a great weapon. They would have been the best weapon in Trump's arsenal when dealing with China. And it would have been wonderful for him to be meeting Xi right now while China's economy had been sustained under tons of economic pressure courtesy of those tariffs. Only that's not the case. Only Trump went down the complete wrong avenue at the advice of Howard Lutnick, very likely, and his other economic idiots who make up his cabinet. And so now we're in this position where they want to discuss trade. Okay, what leverage is Trump bringing to the table out there to discuss that? Well, the Supreme Court just ruled against his method of implementing the tariffs. He then had to go the 1974 Trade Extension Act or whatever, Trade Expansion Act. He had to go that route. A low-level federal district court judge just ruled against that and ordered the Trump administration to begin paying back what they've earned off that. Now, Trump should ignore that judge, in my opinion, but he won't because he's a cuck. And so now that's been shot down. So he is now meeting with Xi Jinping, reportedly, with one of the topics being discussed on the topic of trade, and he has no leverage to discuss this. The tariffs are not working because Trump implemented them completely incorrectly, and they've been shot down. So he's entering this discussion with fucking nothing. So let's just acknowledge that. Now, the next topic that they wanted to discuss, AI. We know we're in an AI race. We're told this all the time. We got to establish and develop our AI. At one point, we were pretty certain China was ahead of us on AI. They probably still are to some degree. And so we're in this AI race with China. And Trump seems to be showing absolutely no signs of being cautious when it comes to implementing, approving, and going forward on this AI path for America. Now, Americans are not comfortable with this idea. We know how disastrous the data centers are, the construction of them. We're talking about the increased water usage, the electrical grids, the increased price for them, the land usage. They're buying up precious farmland that, in all honesty, in my opinion, should be used for such purposes, farming, not by Bill Gates or by fucking China, but by Americans. Instead, it goes towards these data centers, which in many cases, by the way, are the size of several city blocks. They use massive amounts of water, which are probably creating the droughts that we're now being told are occurring, by the way. Farmers are reporting droughts. Well, the data centers are using a lot of the water. The electrical grid is getting more and more fried. Electricity costs go up almost instantaneously in the entire district where these data centers are built, and the cost thus far in most states has been passed on to the average American citizen, by the way. So this is a disaster. AI is going to be used to create a surveillance state. Nobody wants that either. But we're being told by Trump, and this is something else I've been critical of, we got to do it. We got to do it. China's doing it too. China's doing it, and AI is the future. It's great technology, honestly. I mean, it's really great. Have you seen the Sydney Sweeney nudes? Have you seen them? I mean, beautiful. What a great use. What a great use of electricity. You can literally make Sydney Sweeney topless. It's perfection. That's what's going on. And I'm completely against AI for the most part. I am for the regulation of AI. I think it needs to be regulated, but I don't think Trump, being an 80-year-old boomer, understands that whatsoever. And I think he does know it's leading to a surveillance state, and I don't think he cares. I think he thinks that it's worth it. I can base that off of his comments around FISA Section 702 and how he willfully stated that he would happily trade some of his freedom for safety. He said that in a True Social post. So what he does know, he doesn't seem to be bothered by, and what he doesn't know is an even bigger problem. And that's, and then in addition to that, obviously all of his friends profit off of the development of AI. We're talking about Elon Musk. We're talking about all of these other corporate billionaires who are invested in this or who outright own this. And that's what's happening. So that's being discussed in China. Can't wait to hear how that went. And then, so it's trade failing miserably. AI, not great for the future of the world. AI is literally the antithesis of mankind, in my opinion. This was a tool being created to help us, and now we're pushing forward and moving forward in the steps to create something that will replace us. It absolutely makes no sense. But they're going to discuss it. Now, this is a 2-for-1. It's separated out topics here, semiconductors and Taiwan. But really, if you understand this, you know that these two topics will be discussed probably together because Taiwan is critical to the United States for semiconductors. And the topic of Taiwan is a topic I've mentioned on this channel as well. So I've said this would become a potential problem here. What's happening with Iran? This is actually associated now with Iran and our presence there and how this entire Iran war is going for us. And again, the top story for today that I'm going to get to in a few minutes here is that leaked classified intelligence report on our level of success in Iran with the bombing runs and the strikes and the military action. We're going to get to that in a few minutes. But this Iran war, I said, would become a problem for a multitude of different reasons, and not just economically. Other countries are watching us, and this is something I've tried to explain at length here on this channel. They're watching all of this play out. I've mentioned the topic of the Pax Americana. I've discussed the history of the post-World War II UN treaties for maritime law, international waters, what was established there, how it was enforced by our U.S. Navy, and why that's so pertinent and important. And then I've also mentioned how China would definitely be watching since they're allied with Iran. And they're going to be watching even more so because we all know China, excuse me, I'm still a little sick. I'm almost better, but I still have a slight cough. They've been eyeing up Taiwan. China's been eyeing up Taiwan. We know this. They look at Taiwan the way Russia looks at Ukraine. And so, And actually, that's even more factually true than what many people realize, because Ukraine historically was used by both Napoleon and by the Big H to use as a path to assault Moscow and get into Russia. And so Russia views Ukraine for more than what people realize. It's strategic. China looks at Taiwan similarly. If China takes Taiwan and captures it, they now have access to all of these potential future seaports, etc. It opens up a lot for them too. And so they look at Taiwan and they're watching Taiwan. And really, their hesitancy, again, like I just explained, China prefers to not fire a single bullet. They prefer to just economically conquer countries, because then you can't really insist that they're waging war. It's actually quite smart. However, when it comes to Taiwan, it would probably take some sort of a military assault to capture Taiwan, and China probably wants to prepare for that and get it over with as quick as possible. What's been stopping China from doing this? The threat of the Pax Americana, our U.S. Navy, the threat of our country in general. That's really what's been stopping them. However, this quagmire now of an Iran war waged by the United States at the behest of Israel and Benjamin Netanyahu has been a complete disaster. It's resulted in minimum success, really no success whatsoever. It's actually made everything worse, and we have no good answer for it. We're stalemated. Nothing's getting done. Iran's made no concessions, and we've been shown now that we've shown and demonstrated to the world that the military credibility that all of these other countries have associated with us has probably been overhyped for several decades now. This pains me to say this as an American nationalist, but we couldn't leave well enough alone with the success of Venezuela, with Trump ending all of those wars, which to his credit, he did assist with and mediate several of them. We should have just left it there, but we couldn't do that. And now we've damaged the perception, which is really what reality is in this world of politics. It's all based on perception. The markets are based off perception and optimism, and the world and politics is fueled by perception. And thus far, we had done a decent job of maintaining a strong perception of our military. However, in this Iran war, for all of the reporting that I've done in the past on this and why it's such a disaster for Trump, China now realizes that maybe we couldn't do much about it. I just did the cost analysis breakdown. Our economy is going to be hurting from this for years to come, and our munitions have been running dangerously low. Several of our various different stockpiles, munitions, and armaments are running dangerously low and take a long time for us to produce. So China now is very likely looking at Taiwan and wondering, could America even stop us at this point? Who's to stop us from taking Taiwan? So that topic will no doubt be a topic being discussed by Trump and by Xi Jinping. And the reason why semiconductors, of course, are associated with that is because that is where we get a lot of our semiconductors from, the Taiwanese chip manufacturing. So that's crucial, not just for the United States, but also for China. And unfortunately, the Iran conflict has really damaged our reputation. And it does make you wonder, what will China decide to do? I still don't think China will go the military route right now. China has historically been very risk adverse, which is again why they wage economic war with countries, because it's a much more passive aggressive and, to their credit, smart approach. But certainly now you have to factor in and acknowledge that this is an increased risk, and Taiwan, the poor people of Taiwan, probably are really closely paying attention to how all of this is playing out right now. So that's another topic, and then they want to discuss Iran. So that's reportedly what's being discussed right now in China. Trump's set to stay there through Friday, I guess. And once we know more details about that, I'll be reporting on that more right here on this channel. I'm going to move on to my main topic for today at this point, which is the leaked classified intelligence report when it comes to Operation Epic Fury in Iran and the level of success our military has had there. But before I do that, please, if you're enjoying this analysis and reporting, like the show, like the stream, double tap your phone screen. It's as easy as doing that. It really helps the show perform better in YouTube's algorithm. Share this with your even dumber friends. I know many of you are not that smart, which means you probably have much dumber friends, because you are the sum of the 5 closest of your friends. So I can only imagine how fucking stupid they are, which is why you should share this with them, because if they get smarter, the rising tide will raise all boats. That will make you smarter too. So share this with your friends, like the stream, and subscribe to American Advocates for more content like this. I'll take a look at a couple of chats like I did a few minutes ago here in between the other segments. I'll take a look at like 3 or 4 chats, and then we'll move on to the top story. This leaked classified intelligence report terrible news. And if you thought Trump was going into Beijing with not a great backing behind him, not a good reputation, with not enough leverage as it was, this leaked classified intelligence report putting out all this bad news, understand this guy right here read it too, guaranteed. So we'll cover that in a minute. All right. I pray to God that Trump doesn't nuke Iran, but I think he will, says Zax. There's no way Trump nukes Iran. I think that is 99.9% unlikely, and I'll tell you why. Because nuking Iran would actually, believe it or not, I know he's the commander in chief, and I do always cite that the president does have, with that title, he has the right to dictate to the military what he wants. He's the commander in chief. It's a military title. However, when it comes to nuking countries, it actually takes more than just presidential approval for the most part. We're talking about it's in some way, it's literally like the movie. There's two separate keys, etc. And so it actually takes more than just the president. And there's almost certainly in the military chain of command right now, there would be the people in charge that are in control of this. They would tell Trump no, actually. And people aren't aware that that could happen, but that's actually, if Trump had floated that idea, he would have been told and informed that very likely there would be a refusal to follow orders based off of literal morality. There would be an ethical issue with that. And so I don't think he's going to nuke Iran. I know you probably saw the news about the nuclear submarine in the Strait of Gibraltar, but you need to understand, again, Trump's the poker player, but sometimes bluffing in wars is appropriate. And that nuclear submarine surfaced in the Strait of Gibraltar with a 4,500-mile launch range on purpose. It literally surfaced the day after we received Iran's response to our peace deal, which Trump considers to be completely unacceptable. And for the sake of America's reputation, it really is unacceptable. They're unacceptable conditions. So the nuclear submarine surfaces in Gibraltar the next day. That's not an accident or a coincidence. That was really being done on purpose. But it is kind of a bluff. It's just a reminder, basically. It's to increase psychological tensions. The odds of him nuking Iran, like I just explained, are so low. I almost don't consider it an option. Howard Clegg says, I hope they can figure this out. Me too. Me too. I don't think that they're going to, though, Howard. I got to be honest with you. And the reason why is because we're just so stalemated in negotiations right now. And you know this. Both sides are like, Iran's on Mars and Trump is on, Venus. It's like it's like opposites right now. And neither side really is refusing to budge whatsoever. Let's see here. Yeah, bold as a lifeguard, my moderator, a 6-year clean alcoholic. Yeah, lifeguard's doing great shit. Business owner after 30 years of drinking every day. I'm a walking miracle. Hell yeah, lifeguard. That's why I'm always concerned. I'm like, dude, don't go back to that bottle after literally sitting in my chat having to moderate the low IQ filth and listen to my reporting, which, believe it or not, in my everyday life, I'm an optimist, but what's going on right now in the world sucks. However, no need to ever, life is great still here in this country, and life is what you make of it. And so it's awesome to hear that, of course. I already knew that about you, but yeah, very cool. All right, anything else to say here? Anything about the topic of what we just discussed? We are witnessing a transfer of power in front of our eyes. I agree with that, Howard Clegg, to some degree. America is still going to remain a powerful country, of course, and a superpower. But the global hegemon, I think that the United States has been, is sadly coming to an end. Especially the real key contributing factor in all of that is going to be the Strait of Hormuz. If Trump needs to pull off some miracle where we leave this region with the appearance of victory and with the Strait of Hormuz remaining open and free. And if that doesn't happen, then that really is. That's why I've mentioned the Pax Americana before on prior episodes. That is fundamental now at this point, and that will really be the beginning of the end of America's global hegemon. So that's probably true, unfortunately. Now, it's not the end of the world, and there is actually a scenario where if we get the right leader in, we actually can take advantage of that situation, in my opinion, by learning to become more self-sufficient again, by leaning more into our own manufacturing and infrastructure, rebuilding our supply chains, and doing what America did originally to become so fucking powerful. We ignored the rest of the world. We traded with them, but we had nothing to do with them. We did what we needed to do when it came to the Barbary Coast, etc. We did what we needed to do internally when it came to the Revolutionary War, the Civil War, etc. But then we got established, and then we decided, you know what? It's all about factories, manufacturing. The tariffs were actually involved back then, believe it or not, because of the trade as well. And so we did all of that and enriched ourselves and became a massive fucking superpower by utilizing the Monroe Doctrine, etc. We can actually see, because the bottom line is problems are just opportunities that haven't presented themselves yet. And so the problem is, yes, Trump has unintentionally, because I don't believe Trump loves America. He's delusional about it, but you have to give him credit. He always speaks highly about America. There's this delusional boomerism when it comes to our country, somewhat endearing. I'll say that. It's true. I as an American nationalist believe this is the best country in the world. So Trump unintentionally has ruined our global hegemon. That is true, I think, unless he pulls off a miracle deal where the Strait of Hormuz remains open and free. However, we can seize that moment, take that problem, and turn it into the opportunity that we need to seize by learning to not isolate ourselves completely, but semi-isolate, by learning to, restrict our military presence that just becomes sitting ducks and expensive repairs, as courtesy of the leaked satellite images now are showing. Pull back a lot of those bases from the Middle East, reduce our funding or eliminate our funding of foreign governments and countries altogether, and utilize that money on Americans. And we can learn to rebuild again our manufacturing and grow that and profit once again, create and maintain the most desirable free market in the world, and all the other countries will still want to participate in this, courtesy in the form of trade, which we can properly tariff and make money off of in addition, and really build our power back up anyway. There's literally an opportunity here to do that. Maybe I'm just being naive and optimistic, but this is true, I believe. But it does mean, of course, that, what has to happen is we have to stop being the world's police, which would, again, we leave NATO, we stop funding NATO, we pull our support for Israel, we pull our support for Ukraine, we pull out, we literally just demolish or remove military bases from the Middle East that would just be expensive targets and excuses to go into more foreign wars again that don't benefit Americans at all, that strip us of more freedoms and rights and money and our blood in the process. So I see an opportunity being presented here truthfully, but we need the right leaders in office to seize that moment, rather than desperately trying to clench onto the old ego and say, no, we will crush everybody. We will destroy anybody who stands in our way. Well, we've just shown in Iran that it's a little bit easier said than done. And, now it's like, what's the path forward here? Which way do you go? Which way, modern Western man? Which way? And I hope we get a good leader in next that recognizes this. Stop everything, a $1.99 super chat tariff from my own moderator, Lifeguard, who says, don't miss this one. I did not miss it. Thank you so much for the support. I appreciate you. Watch early 2000s Walmart choppers for nostalgia, says Zach. I actually do watch that, believe it or not, when it pops up on like Instagram Reels. It's pretty amazing. Okay. Let's move on to the top story, all right? So, top story here. First, like the show if you haven't already. Move those fat thumbs over your phone screen and double tap it. It's free to do. Gives you a little bit of exercise, more than you've had the entire week, fat ass. Like the show, share it with your even dumber friends, and subscribe to American Advocates for more content like this. Got you, says Zach. Appreciate you. All right, so the top story today that I wanted to discuss here, the devastating leaked classified information report here, and really just how bad this is. The bad news here. Trump's in China right now with no real leverage, in my opinion. The Iran wars, we already know, is stalemated, but now we have this classified intelligence report leak, and it really does debunk the propaganda that we've been fed as Americans. The propaganda, the narratives that I've been shattering on this channel for months now, by the way, which is again why you need to be watching every single day, because I go live every day, pretty much. And I break those, I destroy those narratives, and I give you guys the real deal in the Middle East. People who are watching regularly are not surprised we're in the 11th week still. People who are MAGA cultist chuds are shocked. I thought Trump said 4 to 6 weeks. 11th week, bitch. Hitting 12th week soon. Not surprised. Nobody who watches me regularly is either. Now, here's essentially what's been going on here. The leaked intelligence report and what it basically says is, how it basically debunks Trump's propaganda. Now, remember, this has been the narrative that Trump has given us, the propaganda we've been fed. Iran's missiles, the missiles are down to a scatter. This is a direct quote from Trump. Iran's missiles are down to a scatter. And Iran has nothing left in a military sense. It's total annihilation. We destroyed them. Only unconditional surrender are acceptable terms at this point. They're nothing now. We've destroyed them. We've killed all the regime. They're done. Well, here's what the leaked intelligence reports suggest. Iran has restored operational access to 30 of the 33 missile sites that it maintains along the Strait of Hormuz. So yes, we decided to strike those, but Iran has restored operational access to 30 out of the 33 missile sites. 30 out of the 33. Now, that means 90% operational still. Only 10% have been destroyed, probably beyond repair in a timely manner, which means Iran might be able to repair them, but not quick enough. So they're functioning still at a high level as a result. Our military strikes were not successful. In addition to this, of course, I've been telling you that all the main problems based off of the geography of the region, how Iran, we just don't know what we don't know, and we're not prepared for this enemy. But this report is now suggesting this. In addition, the leaked report also says, the intelligence report suggests that Iran retains also roughly 70% of its mobile launchers and 70% of its pre-February 28th war missile stockpiles. Also, in addition to that, the intelligence report goes on to essentially assess that 90% of underground missile storage and launch facilities have been assessed as at least partially operational, and many, if not most of them, are still fully operational. Now, how do we know this? Well, the intelligence report assessment has come in from a bunch of various different sources and reporting, but a large part of this source, a large part of this has been factored in courtesy of satellite imagery. And so we have now seen this. We've recognized that the Strait of Hormuz remains in Iran's control. That's not a popular narrative for the MAGA cultists. I'm a social conservative. I hate admitting it, but it's absolutely true, and I've been doing nothing but reporting on that fact. And now we find out that 30 out of 33 of their missile sites along the Strait of Hormuz have been restored to operational access. If they even needed to be restored is really all the other question. How many of them did we even effectively destroy as it is? Because, let me swig some water. When you monologue like this, your mouth dries out fast. We also know from reports that several of our munitions in the form of, missiles, et cetera, that we fired turned out to be duds as well, which is also disheartening. And we know this because we've also learned that the IRGC is now reverse engineering some of those for their own later use and creation. So how many of them did we actually destroy? That we don't really know. But this report is it's devastating. really, because you have to realize, again, the total cost of this war has been significant. Hegseth, for the record, like I started off the stream saying, Hegseth tries to tell us $29 billion. Iran War Cost Ticker.com says $80 billion. And I just did a report for the first segment. The economic analysts are suggesting the total long-term cost of this war has already exceeded $1 trillion. We also recognize that we've lost 17 soldiers' lives, probably more than that. That's being underreported. We've sustained many injuries, severe damages to our own military bases in the form of billions of dollars of damages. And again, satellite images that were leaked against the will of the Pentagon and the Trump administration that were put out there have shown this and demonstrated how bad Iran's strikes have been for our own equipment and bases. All the while, come to find out, despite the fact that Trump gloats and celebrates how we struck 14,000 of their military targets in Iran since February 28th. 14,000 we've struck. We destroyed their Navy. Their Air Force is non-existent. They have these tiny little boats. That's it. It's nothing. It's really nothing. It's nothing really. All this we've been told, and now come to find out, despite all of that probably being true, they never really had much of an Air Force to begin with, and they do have like one fighter jet that somehow flew over Qatar and landed safely recently, about a month ago, I believe, if recall serves correctly. And then with their Navy, the speedboats are really all that they need, and I've explained why that is in prior episodes. But nonetheless, 14,000 military targets destroyed. And what did it do? Well, 70% of their mobile launchers and pre-missile stockpiles are still intact, not destroyed. For the record, again, I'm just going over it. 90% of underground missile storage and launch facilities are assessed at least partially operational, if not fully operational. And we only destroyed 10% of their missile sites along the Strait of Hormuz. That's abysmal levels of success. It's basically not successful. It's actually a failure, really, is what this indicates. Beyond that, too, this statement that I think correlates with this perfectly came in from a literal neocon warmonger who served under Bush, Robert Kagan. So you can look it up for yourself. I found this statement on X. Robert Kagan, co-founder of Project for the New American Century, and of course the intellectual man behind the concept, the modern American concept of what he calls interventionalism. By the way, interventionism, not interventionalism. Interventionism. He has basically an article with the Atlantic from May 10th. So the Atlantic, May 10th, Robert Kagan, you can look it up for yourself after the show. He says essentially that Trump has now been put in checkmate by Iran. This is the guy, by the way, when I looked up his name immediately, I found out that he was the guy that was the biggest backer of Iraq 03. He's a warmonger. He's a neoconservative. He loves war. Interventionism is basically his baby, his brainchild. And he's saying it's over. He is saying Trump has been checkmated by Iran. Now, it's funny that he's saying that because clearly he might be a decently smart person, but on this channel, I'm the smartest person I've ever met. I've been telling you guys, if you're a longtime viewer, I've been saying this for fucking weeks. I went over every possible outcome that could occur from this and explained how all of them are bad and different marginal differences for Trump, explaining what the least worst option is and what the worst option is. I've been saying this for weeks. But here we are. And he goes on to say as well, by the way, that now the Strait of Hormuz will never fully reopen. China and Russia have gained permanent leverage, and the American credibility has been gutted. He's literally the mascot for like modern day neoconservatism, and this is how he's talking about this war in Iran. So, found that fascinating. Correlates pretty well with the leaked intelligence, classified intelligence reports. And in addition to this as well, I wanted to cover this. So, we also, when was this? Yesterday, we had an Iranian army spokesperson come out and also doubled down even more when it came to this region by saying, our peoples and armed forces resilience have stopped the enemy from achieving any goals. Now, right away, I'll acknowledge the fact that this is a fact. And how do we know that? The terms on our side went from unconditional to surrender to now negotiations, and still we're stalemated with zero actual concessions that are official from Iran. Iran has demonstrated they're willing to compromise down the line potentially when it comes to the nuclear program, but they're making demands as if they control everything. And so Trump wants to discuss the nuclear facility program first because that's always been the main goal, according to Trump, and for why we're there, why we struck Iran. We know the secondary objective was to serve Israel and effect regime change and destabilize Iran so much that they are irrelevant when it comes to force output and when it comes to threatening Israel and their advances into South Lebanon and Gaza, the West Banks, eventually into Turkey. We'll see them, of course, do. So that was the secondary objective, and then we were told a bunch of other nonsense. And now really the main focal point, and I explained why this is on a prior episode as well, is the Strait of Hormuz, because this is now everything. The Strait of Hormuz is everything, and I did a whole video and live stream about how the Strait of Hormuz has essentially become the nuke for Iran. They don't have nuclear warheads, but they've essentially learned that with proper strategy, the Strait of Hormuz is actually even worse than using a nuke. I broke that down in a prior episode. Go check that out, like I said, later on. So they've made this statement, and we've gotten nothing. No concessions officially from Iran, and they're the ones trying to dictate terms. They say they won't discuss the nuclear facility issue until the Strait of Hormuz is reopened. But if Trump were to ever agree to that, we forfeit all of our leverage by making a deal with them that likely includes them controlling the Strait of Hormuz and charging a toll for it, ending the Pax Americana, and then with no guarantee that they'll actually give us the proper concessions we want on the nuclear facility program, which is why the adverse of that is Trump saying, no, we will discuss the nuclear facility program first, then we discuss the Strait of Hormuz. Neither side agrees, and it's stalemated. This army spokesperson goes on to say for Iran, says, controlling the Strait of Hormuz will bring us economic revenues twice as high as oil income while strengthening our foreign policy power. After this war, there will be no retreat. The Strait as a permanent revenue stream, and essentially Iran is looking to not just become an oil exporter, but also now tolling the artery of the Middle East. And they continue. They said week one, you have to understand this, week one in their statement after post-February 28 strikes, they said we will control the Strait of Hormuz now forever, no matter what America decides to do. And that is a vow that they have yet to break or even give hints that they would concede on. And that's the biggest dilemma here now. So that's where we're at on that. And in addition, the global economy is already in a recession. We're going to feel that all year long. Worse yet, some economists are now essentially stating that the damage is so bad and likely so long lasting that gas prices now are being projected to remain high for 2 to 3 years. They won't come back down to pre-February 28th levels for 2 to 3 years. Understand what that means. That means now the entirety and possibly the remainder of Trump's presidential term could be plagued with high gas prices. His legacy is very likely already ruined. So that's where we're at on that now. And, I wanted to cite this too, because this is an understanding that not many people have, and why I chose to open this show with that economic analyst report on $1 trillion in cost for this Iran war over the prolonged future, and how people do not understand the lasting and lagging effects of actions like this. Inflation's a great example that some people can comprehend, but not everybody. So there's a real world example of how actions like this have real world effects that last a long time, even when they're over on paper. Which is why I've been saying on this channel, even if Trump leaves tomorrow, we now suffer economically for the remainder of 2026 and into 2027. People don't grasp that. So there's a real world example. I've mentioned it actually twice already in passing on this channel, and real quick, I'll bring it up again. It's called the Bab el-Mandeb Strait. It's called the Red Sea. This is controlled oftentimes, or sabotaged at least, by the Houthis, who are in Yemen, and they're one of Iran's allies. We've dealt with them in the past, semi-successfully so, but not even with them totally successfully so. But they've also done this with the Red Sea, similar to how Iran's trading the Strait of Hormuz. Excuse me. And you need to look at the lasting effects on that region, because this was over 2 years ago now, and they haven't posed much of a threat to the Red Sea since. So the Red Sea is considered open and free, more importantly. But what have been the results of that? Well, even 2 years removed from that conflict in the Red Sea and Bab el-Mandeb Strait, the voyages, the passage through the Red Sea and Bab el-Mandeb, the movement of oil tankers and cargo ships, etc., has only been restored to 75% of normal levels before the Houthis did what they did. This is now 2 years removed, mind you. So there's still 25% of the efficiency of that region not in play yet, which means that it was a lasting effect. Now picture that for the Strait of Hormuz, which is even more critical for global trade than the Bab el-Mandeb and the Red Sea is. That region is responsible for what, 12 to 18% of oil. The Strait of Hormuz is responsible for something to the effect of like 28%. It's a big difference. And the reason why the Bab el-Mandeb and Red Sea have been slow to build up to 100% again since those 2 years have gone by is because of insurance companies. That's a problem I've mentioned in the past too. The mere threat of action is more than enough, unfortunately, to control these waterways. And Iran has already demonstrated they're not afraid to make those threats and back them up like they did last week, taking out 4 ships in under 48 hours. And the Houthis have done the same thing. So people need to understand this. They need to understand that what's happening right now will have lasting effects. People are in this delusional world where, well, Trump could end this soon. And if he ends it tomorrow, then it all goes away. Not true. It's not true. The fertilizer element in all of this I've covered, we're not even feeling that yet. We won't feel that until later in summer and then into fall with produce and farmers, et cetera, who have been affected by fertilizer. Helium's another element in this too. And gas prices and inflation winds up getting baked in, which means that it has a lasting effect. So just understand that and understand why so many people are pissed off about this war and why it's currently the most unpopular modern day war in American history. It's more unpopular now than even Vietnam and Iraq '03. So I'll leave you guys off with that. Be sure to like the show, like the stream right now. It's not too late. Free to do. Helps the stream perform better. Helps the show perform better overall. Helps the channel grow. And subscribe to American Advocates if you enjoyed this analysis and reporting. I go live every night, Monday through Friday. I try to go live. I may as well just say 9 p.m. Central, 10 p.m. Eastern at this point. I try to aim for an hour sooner than that, but I've been so busy lately. And then tonight I went live much later than that, so fuck. But I'm going to try and dial that back down to a somewhat normal time so I'm not streaming well past midnight here Eastern or 11:30 Central. So that's where I'm at, though, guys. Please like the stream, like I said, subscribe for more content like this. Share this show with your dumber friends who need a good education as well. I'll take a look at a few chats, too, by the way. Thoughts and opinions on all of this. I'm happy to read some of them. Stop everything, though, before I look at all of the regular goy slop chats down there from you pathetic mongrels and pathetic subhuman creatures. I've got to acknowledge a $2 super chat tariff from our resident boomer and 40-year veteran Army targeting officer, Howard. Thank you, man. I appreciate you so much for the $2 super chat. And like the Chad that he is, he says nothing. He's just like, have $2, man. I really appreciate you. So thank you, Howard. Seriously. Howard, hopefully my analysis today was on the money. Hopefully. I do my best to provide as good of an analysis as possible. Yeah, this is true, Bold. This is true. So I don't know what you're responding to what Lifeguard said, but yes, Hegseth has been on a general and admiral firing spree this year. This year. In 1 week, he fired like 5 of them, by the way. Now, there's a couple theories on why. You did say it's because they didn't want to go in line along with this war. That's likely true for some of them. Some of the other theories include the fact, and you know what? I meant to make this prediction yesterday when I was doing the Nick Fuentes versus Steven Crowder episode. I was also going to briefly cover Hegseth, but I predict Pete Hegseth will be fired this year, and I want that prediction out there. I've been like mostly accurate with a lot of my predictions on this channel thus far, and I predict Pete Hegseth will be fired this year, and if I'm wrong, he'll be fired at the beginning of next year, but that's only if Trump continues to be a cuck and doesn't fire the problematic people in his administration. Hegseth needs to go, and this has been a massive blunder, and he's one of the last people reportedly in this administration that support this. The reports are that actually J.D. Vance is growing in more frustration with Hegseth because he feels like Hegseth is leading Trump astray with over-optimistic analysis and approach to the war. And the reports are, of course, that Vance was against this war pretty much from the start, along with Marco Rubio, who, according to reports from the Wall Street Journal, Marco Rubio essentially told Trump as soon as Netanyahu left the Situation Room, which he should have never been in, Trump asked for what their thoughts were on the Israeli intelligence. According to reports, Marco Rubio literally looked at Trump and said, it's bullshit. Vance was kind of against it, I guess. And then it's Hegseth who's been the one that's like, no, we can do this. We're killing them, Mr. President. We're crushing them. Hegseth is going to inevitably be fired. There's just almost no way around it at this point. Now, stop everything. I know it's Canadian, but we'll still stop everything for those Canadian dollars, knowing that it's about 30 what? Shit, where's that currency at these days? 34 cents less maybe? So $1.66, somewhere around there. But still, money is money. It's green. I'll happily take it. No refunds. I'll never give it back. From Mike Abrams 8959. Thank you for the Canadian $2. I really do appreciate that. Seriously, thank you so much for paying that super chat tariff. It helps balance out the chat deficit from the swine slop down there that I have to sometimes swim through and wade through. So thank you. Swine slop from like this guy, Ryan H 2691. Let me read it in the voice that he definitely has. You're a dipshit, mister. You're a dipshit. NVA 2774 says, I don't know about that. The guy who owns Palantir has infinite interest. Yeah, this is very true, though. Yeah, well, listen, I say this all the time, multiple times, because I know when I criticize Trump, I attract liberals, and I don't actually mean to. Like, you're welcome here if you can handle when I do socially conservative streams, but I am a social conservative and fiscal. So I always put that as a little disclaimer up, but I will tell you, I'm very aware. I am very aware of J.D. Vance, and I would not support him for president. I've looked into his history, and I'll tell you this. There's like this conglomerate that you start to notice when you realize Palantir's at the center of it. Peter Thiel, obviously. You look at, you just got to follow the currency. When it comes to your politicians, and by the way, on the left, it's just as bad, if not worse. You got to follow the money to see what they really stand for. And so you follow the currency from Peter Thiel and you realize, well, that actually includes Vivek Ramaswamy, who I'm definitely not a fan of, and it includes J.D. Vance. And so you got to realize that, and that is completely true. And I've been saying that on this channel for months now, that Vance is going to be kind of a problem. He's one of the wealthy donors that's directly in Trump's ear. This is true, and this is why we're having such an issue with AI in this administration as it is. You know, I always advocate for AI regulation here, but Trump's not going to do it. Peter Thiel's a big Republican donor. Big, massive Republican billionaire donor. Anything else here in the chats? Stop labeling people. It's divisive. Pursue the truth. Life is about labels. Yeah, you're going to have to just get over that one, unfortunately, Richard Muir. Life is literally about labels. That there's a status to life. There's a label. It's a societal function of life to label stuff. So I am an American nationalist, social and fiscal conservative, born-again Christian, okay? Like that's what I am. Like there's people that are the exact opposite of that. And you know what the funny thing is? I never seem to get along with them for very long. In person, a friendly smile, a hello can be a great thing, good for energy. You know, we all exist in this world, etc. I'm okay with that in passing. But like, let's say somebody who's the opposite of me, that hates America, is an atheist, is a social liberal progressive, and a fiscal liberal, like communist, socialist, whatever. Well, if I talk with them for longer than 5 minutes and it goes beyond the weather and how it's raining and how summer's finally here, and thank God for that, and I bring up pretty much any topic with them, amazingly, I don't get along with them. And that's why labels are useful. So yeah, it's divisive. No, beliefs are divisive, and beliefs are like an inherent part of us as people. And we label ourselves based off our beliefs, which is normal, actually. It's actually normal to do that. So, we're not all one. We're not some weird energy force that just need to unite. We actually can't unite, believe it or not. Our moral values are too different. And so that's why labels are a thing. And you're welcome for that. John Fetterman's going to run? Yuck. Energy and money, all on blockchain at the speed of light. Okay. I don't know what that has to deal with. Eat dicks then, bye. Yeah, see, well, why are you what are you labeling me then as, Richard Muir? Why would you say that's so rude? I mean, that's honestly so rude. You hippie scum. But farewell, please. The trash can just take itself out there. Mike Abrams says, yeah, I think it's the rich trying to protect their riches. This is always the case. This is always the case. We gotta find a way around. We gotta find a way to deal with that too. We're all God's children. No, we are not. God's children are those who recognize the Savior. All the rest are vessels of wrath fitted for destruction. But I get what you're saying in principle. We are all God's creation, that I will say. And so as a result of that, there is this luminous being kind of element to all of us. This is true. We do have a higher spirit and a higher mind. But no, I don't believe we're all God's children. We're all his creation, though. That much is true. Ted Cruz needs to be the candidate for the Republicans. What? Is that rage bait? I'm not even gonna, I can't even allow it. It's too late for a cortisol spike, so I'm just going to laugh. I'm literally just gonna laugh at that. Oh, and by the way, it actually is funny though. Like even if it's not rage bait, it actually is even funnier that you would even think that way. But if it is rage bait, props. Very good rage bait. Ted Cruz, the future of the Republican Party. Yeah, guess who's appointed head of the Board of Peace for life and has the ability to overrule anybody. And by the way, appointment the next person. That's right. Yeah. Yep. Yeah, the Board of Peace. What an ironic concept to be put into effect, and then we go to into the Iran war, right? Thank you for deleting those, Lifeguard. I actually appreciate that. Yeah, I don't know what's bit of spam there. A bit of spam there. No spamming in the chats, no matter how funny you think it is. No spamming. You can say it once, don't spam it. Lots of worried in Trump's face. His mind is not in China. His mind is on the economic pressure. That's probably true, Paul. Yeah. It's an economic disaster of his own doing. And that's the funny part, too, because, I had this clip pulled up, and I don't know if you guys have heard this or not, but this is actually, we'll play this right now. This is actually Trump's thoughts on the financial situation of every American.
Negotiating with Iran, Mr. President, to what extent are Americans' financial situations motivating you to make a deal?
Not even a little bit. The only thing that matters when I'm talking about Iran, they can't have a nuclear weapon. I don't think about Americans' financial situation. I don't think about anybody. I think about one thing. We cannot let Iran have a nuclear weapon. That's all.
So it's weird because, I don't disbelieve you, by the way. Trump is definitely thinking about the economic impacts of this, but then he'll go and say that. And this was just said, by the way, 2 days ago by Trump, or not even 2 days ago, technically a day and a half ago. And so the financial situation of Americans, how much does that weigh on Trump's decisions, specifically when it comes to Iran? Well, it turns out, I guess it doesn't. He doesn't think about our financial situations whatsoever. And, it's just a shame as a conservative myself to have to listen to that from a conservative president who is supposed to be the one, with conservatives, you're supposed to be getting the fiscal conservative element here. And then you realize, no, because the neoconservative psyop has been in effect for so many decades now that nobody conserves fiscally anymore. Neither side conserves fiscally. Both sides just spend it all away for their varying different causes that they champion. It's disgusting. Trump wanted Hormuz shut? No, he definitely did not. You explained that so well. The China deal is crazy, says Sugar Sugar. I don't know where you're at in the live stream, if you're like watching a little bit in the past rewind still and not caught up to the live Sugar Sugar. You probably are, actually, but I appreciate that. Thank you. Rubio is the best choice. Yuck. No, he's not. The truth is, neither Rubio nor Vance will cut it. It's a guaranteed loss for Republicans. As stupid as this sounds, I realize Jillian Michaels has an excellent video where she puts all the pieces together well. I'll try to look that up later tonight. Maybe it'll be like my ASMR for sleep. I'll listen to the sounds of a lesbian woman explaining the Middle East conflict to me. That will probably soothe my soul. Thank you. Thank you for the recommendation, David Cooper. Jillian Michaels. I can't. Falling asleep to that beautiful voice. Yo. Woo. I've got a lot to look forward tonight. Thank you. Seriously. Albert Rodriguez says, what president would you be satisfied with? An actual social conservative and fiscal conservative who's young enough to understand the social and cultural issues plaguing our society, who's young enough to understand what people my age as a young 30-year-old millennial are going through, who's young enough to understand just how fucked the Gen Z below my generation is. Like somebody who will understand that politics, the whole point of our political system is to represent the people and be put in a position of power where your real only goal is to think and act in terms of preserving the country for future generations and not thinking about prioritizing the boomers who are all going to be dead. No offense, Howard. I hate that I have cool boomers in here and I have to say this. Selena girl, I saw you're a boomer too and you tolerate my shit, you said. No offense to you guys. You're the ones that we want to live forever. However, most of these boomers are going to be dead in the next decade or two, and they're not even going to be voters as a result. And somehow Trump is deciding to do everything that appeals to them and benefits them at the expense of the youth. It's an abomination, and it's ass backwards, and it's not how anything is supposed to be done. So I want a politician that's under the age of 60, preferably under 55, preferably under 50, really, but I'll take somebody who, a man in his 50s is a smart man with enough energy to get shit done still. So I would accept any president in their 50s. But they need to be, we need age limits. We can't have these dementia-ridden 80-year-olds who could croak any second in the Oval Office running shit. They're out of touch. They're slow. They're losing their minds. You know, Trump is losing his mind now, I think, at this point. I think we just need to admit that. I don't think he has, like, cognitive dementia where he's, like, becoming so impaired like we saw with Biden, for instance. But Trump definitely has, in my opinion. I think he's slowly developing behavioral dementia. He's losing his behavioral inhibitions and becoming, you know, his political incorrectness in 2015 was charming because he was rugged and against the grain from so many of the prim and proper bullshit-ass neocons and politically correct censorship endorsing liberals. But now it's like he's 80 and he's unhinged, and it's not funny when the economy sucks. You know, the charm is gone and it's getting worse with him. And he's out of touch, and he doesn't think about our financial situation as the average American. That's not what we vote for, right? So that's what I'm looking for in a candidate. I want somebody younger who's with the times, who understands social issues when it comes to the gender divide, the issues with marriage, the birth rates, the supply chains, the manufacturing, the jobs market, the housing market. All of these things are important, not foreign wars. Israel's not important to me. I don't give a flying fuck about Israel. If it disappears tomorrow, I don't lose a single ounce or minute of sleep over that. Ukraine equally is not important to me actually either. Nothing in the old world is important to me as an American. I don't care about the people that live there. I don't lose sleep over the Persians being liberated or not and not being occupied by the IRGC. That's their own problem to deal with. We have many problems here. And so that's what I'm looking for in a candidate. And you're not going to get that with Rubio. And you won't get it with Vance. I think Vance will do a better job of selling that to us, but he's backed by Peter Thiel and Palantir. And so he's going to say whatever he needs to say to become president so that he can usher in the AI surveillance state, which is, again, against our interests. So, yeah. And then the frauds on the left are not the answer either. So, Gavin Newsom is a snake oil salesman. He's an absolute failure and a disaster of a governor. Like, California is worse off now than it was before he became the governor there. It's the shittiest, no pun intended, but if you've ever been to California like I have, you've seen the decline of it under Gavin Newsom. It's been an abomination. And the Democrats have this amazing ability to fail their way up the ladder. So it's like watching Gavin Newsom just fail in California, and now he very likely will be their presidential candidate if they're smart. He's not the answer. He's not black like he wants to be. He's a objectively speaking, a good-looking guy, right? No homo. Good-looking guy. I get the appeal, but he's a snake oil salesman. And AOC is not the answer either. She's, first of all, a phony. She's going to take her stand against Israel, and that's going to be popular, but she's going to be phony. She's already received the funding, and in private, she endorses all of their antics, and she's an airhead. She's fucking stupid. So there are no good candidates right now. There's none. There's none. That's the real answer. There's no good candidates right now, but that's what I'm looking for. I just want to actually be prioritized by somebody as an American. Lightfoot 2028. Yeah, we need Bigfoot, actually. We need somebody like Bigfoot. We need an actual dark horse. Massey 2028 says dial-up. Is that you, dial-up? I haven't seen you here in a while. If that is you, I recognize that username. Haven't seen you here in a while. Massey, I'm not a huge fan of, though, because of his immigration stance. It's a little soft, in my opinion. But Massey has a good voter record when it comes to America First, not APEC funded whatsoever. So Massey's an interesting thought. We'll see. Right now, Massey has to recover from the assault on his political career by Trump. So we'll see if he holds his district. I'm actually hoping he does. Come to Orange County or San Diego, most beautiful area in the United States. Yeah, I've never been to San Diego, but I've always wanted to go to San Diego. I'm a gardener in my everyday life, actually, and the year-round gardening ability in San Diego is very appealing to me. There's this YouTube chick that I watch from San Diego. Her name is Callie Kim, and I'm just like, I'm always so crotchety watching her because it's like most other states in America get cold in January and you can't garden. And she'll be like, oh, I gotta deal with these bees that are in my garden. And it's like January 10th. I'm like, fuck you in the best way possible. Fuck you. You got flowers in January? I wish, So San Diego, I know, is beautiful, though. Great climate for sure. I've been to California several times. I love In-N-Out Burger and whatnot, so. There won't be good candidates probably ever again. Well, that's just not true. There are good candidates rising up now. It's just a matter of getting them into positions of power. So I don't believe that. I actually believe there will be good candidates again. It'll just be a matter of identifying them and getting them into power, voting for them. The U.S. is governed from the outside, it looks like, says Mike Abrams. And you're my Canadian Super Chat donor, so you're telling me that. I'm assuming you're Canadian. So, yes, thank you for saying that, because obviously it is true to a large extent. Yes, I agree with you. AOC talks and thinks like a 14-year-old girl. Yeah, pretty much. She peaked in high school. Yep, year-round, says Bold. That is so cool. Like, imagine just, like, having, like, some, like, cherry tomato in January. That would be so dope. Not having to cut down all of your garden in, like, late November because a frost came and killed all of it. That would be pretty dope. It's expensive here, but business never stops. It is expensive, yeah. That's the main downfall. That's why I probably would never live in California. But visiting it, awesome. Always awesome. Dan Bilzerian says Randy McDowell. I don't know about Dan Bilzerian. I think he's an edgelord. I think he's an edgelord, and he doesn't have a lot of substance. Like, you listen to Dan, and it's like if it rains while he's on the campaign trail, he's like, it's the fucking Jews. They have a weather machine, and they're sabotaging my campaign. I had to cancel an event because the Jews created a hurricane to ruin it. Kind of like, dude, chill out, man. Like, not everything is a conspiracy with the Jews, actually. Like, yeah, they predicted sun and it rained. Oh my God, it must be the Jews with their weather machine, Dan. I don't know, dude. Like, he's funny to me. And I mean, I guess at least he acknowledges that it's an issue. We all know it's an issue nowadays, the foreign occupation. But, like, he goes real far with that. Almost too far, in my opinion. Could I share my thoughts on Bernie Sanders? Seems like a sincere guy, but he's definitely been corrupted by politics. And I'm not, I don't really like any of his ideas, to be honest with you. But I always respected his sincerity early on. And really where I lost respect for him was when he allowed the Democrats to rig the primaries and choose Hillary Clinton over him. He really just bent the knee to Hillary, which was a terrible idea. And, you know, that's where I lost a lot of respect for him because it's like, dude, you're a cuck. I don't agree with any of his fiscal policies to begin with anyway, though, but I respected his sincerity early on. Now it's very clear, though, he's been bought. I mean, Big Pharma donates to him. He owns like 3 homes, etc. And then, of course, people say he doesn't own them, though. He lives in them. You know how wealthy people work, okay? So overall, not a fan. And again, too old. Yeah, I Mike Abrams, yeah, old. Lots of energy. He does have some good vitality, I'll admit that. Objectively speaking, he's like the exception to my ageism rule where it's like no more politicians over 60. Bernie, they call him Crazy Bernie, but that's only because he goes off on passionate rants that are entertaining to watch, actually. Like, I actually like his rants. Not that I don't even agree with most of them, but he is he's very charismatic. And I would say he's mentally all there. But, you know, you can't take that risk is the problem. So I think age limits are a great thing for politicians. Still, but Bernie would wind up being one of those exceptions. Not everybody ages and gets like dementia or suffers memory loss or it has their decisions impacted, but still. Trototter says, thank you. Yeah, you're welcome, man. No problem. Fight the oligarchy, right? Yeah. This dude actually thinks Republicans and Democrats are 2 different parties. Haha, moron, says Lightning Fox. Yeah, I'll tell you why that's a thing, Lightning Fox, because I want every single illegal immigrant deported out of this fucking country. Every single one. 50 million plus gone. I want them all out. I'm anti-abortion. I'm anti-transgender. I'm anti all of that shit. Okay? Does that make a little bit more sense to you now? Or are the parties all the same? I often wonder why these old guys only have a few years left, yet they don't care about the world. Tell me about it. Mike, this is what I'm talking about. Literally, I'm literally talking about this issue. Again, it's ass backwards. Our political system and our representatives should be thinking not just about Americans first, but really the young generations. They're the future. You know, they're the future. And so it's so ridiculous that it's set up this way. And it is the boomers. The boomer generation is the generation plagued with greed. They coined the term greed is good. That's their motto. So they always just enrich themselves and it's always their own self-interest stuff. It's so ridiculous. Now, again, we got some good boomers in this chat, but again, you know, it's just like the ones that find themselves in power, well, they've all been shit. Foreigners can run better for America. No, we should have no foreigners in our political system whatsoever. I don't get to go down to Mexico and try to run in their political system. I certainly don't get to go over to Israel and run in theirs, by the way. You won't see an American Israeli government official, nor will you see a Mexican American government official. You don't get to see that pretty much anywhere else. But for some reason in America, we got these little scumbag allegedly incestuous candidates like Ilhan Omar. Seize her assets, take everything from her, redistribute all of the value of that to the citizens of her state, and deport her to Somalia with nothing but the clothing on her back. Bernie is the door to the past, says Joe Jack. Yeah, I don't know about that. Yes, 2 Muslims rule so much for all the... Boomers can't find the answer because they have no heart for it. They don't have an appetite for the truth is what you really come to realize, Mike Abrams. the more you try to discuss realities with boomers, the more you try to say, like, listen, like, this is what's really happening. There's foreign influence in our government. This is what took place. Some of them will start to acknowledge it, but they don't have an appetite to discuss it at length. And many of them will just get mad at you. And so, even trying to like red pill boomers is usually a big mistake. Now, I'll tell you this, I'm a hateful and spiteful person overall when it comes to idiots and not tolerating stupidity or the blind. And so I force it on them. I like stressing out the boomers. I think they need more stress in their life. They bought their homes for 18 grand after saving up for a year. They bought their car for 9 grand. They lived in the best economic times of America, and they currently all receive entitlements that we pay for that I'll never be a beneficiary of. So I go around and I red pill the fuck out of boomers, and I raise their blood pressure levels up as high as I possibly can. And I red pill the ever-loving shit out of them. I talk about all of the no-no topics. Everything that they were psyoped with, globalism, feminism, sexual liberation, all of the Israel worship. I talk about all of it, and I give them the history of all of it. The feminism suffrage movement being 2/3 women and Jewish, 2/3 Jewish women, funded by a certain, upper echelon of Jews. I red pill them about our immigration policy, the Immigration and Nationality Act of 1965. I red pill them with the Emma Lazarus poem, The New Colossus, written in 1883, bolted onto the Statue of Liberty in 1903 to change the meaning of the Statue of Liberty. I red pill them about how World War I was waged to end the era of kingdoms and empires, and how World War II finalized everything and established what we have now. I red pill them with what Douglas, or who was it? Yeah, General MacArthur. I red pill them with quotes from him, Henry Ford, Martin Luther, the Protestant Reformation the father of the Protestant Reformation, John Calvin. I red pill these boomers. I red pill the fuck out of them, because I don't give a shit. The H-1Bs from 1990s George H.W. Bush, the selling of all of our shit overseas from Ronald Reagan. I red pill them with the subprime loans from Bill Clinton and how it crashed the housing market. I red pill them with the Kalergi strategy written in the 1600s from a Jew about the brownification of countries that is inevitably done to lead to the downfall of the Europeans, so that the Zionists can establish their essential hierarchy in the world, where they're, of course, the supremacists that sit at the top. I red pilled the shit out of them. They deserve the stress. They deserve to have their little fucking fantasy world that they lived in and grew up in destroyed, because none of it was real, and because it was all fake and they fell for it, they continually made the worst decisions that now we pay for and have to live with. So I red pill them, but you shouldn't. You shouldn't. Like, most people are not ready for that, because the effects of it can be catastrophic. So be cautious. Leave that to the pros like me. I live for that. I desire to spread nothing but the truth, as painful as it is. And in a sadistic way, I oftentimes just enjoy it. Like, yeah. Now you realize the USS Liberty. I know that's a cliched one, but it's like, like, that's the one where all the people think they're noticers now. But I'll bring it. You got to bring it up still. It is important. Jonathan Pollard, all of it. I'll just red pill them. Joe Jack says, boomers pretty much got us into this situation to begin with. Yeah, they did. And, it's not, the thing is, there's no individual boomer really you get to hold responsible, but collectively it's a generation thing. So, at the end of the day, it's like, yeah, the generations are responsible for the times that they created for their children. And where are we at right now? Well, boomers are buying their second home while their children are living in a closet-sized apartment for $2,500 a month rent. Something's wrong here, something's wrong here. Gen Z can't even afford insurance to drive a car, let alone afford the car. And when they go to move out, they're paying $1,800 a month for a 10 by 9 square foot studio apartment. And then they move back home after a year because they can't fucking afford it. So, yeah, you know what? They deserve a little bit of grief. Yet you are MAGA, says Aaron H. Yeah, I am. Who said that? Who told you that? Who said that, Aaron? Did I say that? I certainly didn't say that. generation that got everything and left nothing. Correct. The first generation of its kind to have it better than their parents and also better than their children. And again, that's why future candidates must prioritize the young generations. Really, that's where we're at. Yep, inflation, cause of greed. So it's true. It's true, Mike Abrams. It's true. And we'll never be able to buy a home, says Joe. Yeah, Gen Z. Oh man, this is why. But we can fix this, and that's why we never take the black pill, because we can fix this. And that's really one of the main things that this channel is all about is making sure that we get the right messaging out there, get the right people in. We've noticed, we know now what's wrong, right? It's all over the place. Gen Z is not psyoped like all of the other generations were. And I'm a young millennial, but I'm only in my early 30s, so I'm close on the oldest on the line of the oldest Gen Z. And as a result, I think a lot of millennials are either not psyoped or shaking off the psyop that affected the boomers. And so it really is the two youngest generations right now, excluding Gen Alpha since they're not in the real world. It's the millennials and it's definitely the Gen Zers that are aware and becoming more aware and are looking to do something about it. So we can do that. I believe in that. But it's going to take a lot. It's going to take a lot of us getting politically active and running for offices and starting off in that element, or doing what we can do, raising money, making money, establishing positions of power. But that's what's natural as young generations age anyway, and boomers are aging out. So good times are potentially ahead for us. It's really just going to be up to us to seize those moments and take control. And that's really what will determine the fate of America. So it's not over yet. It's not over yet. Now, Gen Z never owning a home, that's a possible reality. Many young millennials will never own a home either. That's a possible reality right now if things continue on the current course. And so we have to course correct. And there's a lot that's going to go into that. But never take that black pill. Just find good people and either support them or become the good people that run for office and take that power. And you can start off, if you're young, you gotta go the right avenue. You gotta go on the right channels for that. You gotta join the military. That makes for excellent future politicians when you have military experience, especially if you rise up in the military. You're a staff sergeant, you're a captain, you're a colonel, etc. Then you go and run for political office, and you have a reputation to you. You have a resume that's already inherently built in. Or you go to college and you go down the proper courses in college to run for office. If you're young, if you're already older and you didn't go down either of those avenues, then you start off at the smallest local level position: town council, town supervisor, some sort of advisory board position, school board, try to work your way up to a mayor, etc. What do they call it? Deputy mayor, lieutenant governors. There's all these different positions, but we got to start, and good people need to get involved. And if for some reason that can't be you, but you want to support good people like that in the future, then you use your money to do that, or you put in sweat equity and find people and go door to door and get signatures for them when needed, get petitions going for them. You get them on the paper. You do what you need to do support wise for them in any means necessary. This country is about community. And the best thing about the Gen Zers are not only that they're not psyops, but Gen Zers, unlike any generation before them, has this collectiveness to them in the best way possible. They collectively are becoming more in sync with each other, though there are radical differences in morality amongst them. They're collectively in sync about very key issues, and so it's community attempting. It's an attempt on community being restored, and that's super important. We need that community back. So that's where we start. But anyways, and you know what? It's like, well, I'll save that for another day. Anyways, thank you all for tuning in. It's a 2-hour mark now. I'm gonna sign off here for tonight. It's very late now. Lifeguard, you're still awake. That's crazy, dude. I hope you don't have anywhere to be early in the morning, because it's midnight now, or like 1 a.m. depending on where you're at. But appreciate the mod work. Appreciate my super chats from my Canadian viewer, from Howard Clegg, from all the other super chatters here. I really appreciate you guys so much. Appreciate the support. Be sure to like the stream if you haven't already. The stream, the show. Support the show. Share it with your friends. And subscribe to American Advocates for more content like this, because I go live every single night, Monday through Friday especially, and then on the weekends too. And yes, David Cooper, I will watch the lesbian ASMR video from Jillian Michaels about the war, right? The war in Iran. I'll check that out tonight. I'll see what she has to say. I'm not too excited about it, but maybe I'll be pleasantly surprised if her soothing, loving sounding, tender voice doesn't put me to sleep. All right. Hey, have a great rest of your evening, guys. Never give up hope on America, the best country to live in by far, even right now. I love this country and I love our fellow Americans, even though I single out many of you in the chat and call you literally stupid goyim, because you are, let's be real. But I'll still love the idea of you existing in this country to begin with. So glory to America. God bless the USA, and God bless all of you. Have a great